The easier it gets to build, the more startup will fail by building what is the wrong thing that people don't want. So conventional venture capital wisdom tell us that 42% of startup will die building what nobody really wants. Anthropic in the latest Playbook says that number it's just about to climb because their AI shrinks idea to product at almost nothing in terms of time frame. So building used to take months, and those months were actually useful because they were forcing founders to ask one question, which is, does anyone want this? So now it's easy to ship the wrong thing in a weekend. So the real question for founder now is not really can you build it, but should you build it? So first reaction from the Anthropic Playbook, I think, is massive because it's kind of starting redefining a little bit what we have been thinking about startups, and things are moving fast and shifting. What is your take on this?
Yeah. No, this is a good take. This is the final chapter in the playbook, and I strongly agree with it. On the one side, I mean, if you take speed of building aside, the point of finding real problems to solve, hard problems to solve, has always been the key point in building a startup and being a successful entrepreneur. So nothing new here, I would say, but I do also agree that since it is so much easier to build, there will be much more noise, or maybe many more problems will be solved that previously could not be solved. I've read recently that there are other opinions going around about the ability to go and solve problems that are so niche, so specific that they were not profitable before, and they can be solved now. But probably these are not problems that are venture capital grade, but still there are problems that can be solved in an economic and sustainable way. So that's good. And my final observation is they're bragging a little bit, right? So I mean, the implication is our tools are, the perfect builder for the new era of startups. So there's some kind of, subtle implication here about the quality of the new tools. And they agree about it, but I find it, amusing. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, there is probably, even before that, there is a big confirmation bias kind of thing, which is essentially with AI, and if you feed an idea, then you can easily find a way to justify it in the best possible way. So even for investor, like receiving like well argued pitches with data, it's becoming way more easier to fake this kind of strength. So I'm thinking, down the road, how exactly maybe diligence is gonna change. So before, like a well-positioned pitch with nice data had a meaning. Right now is kind of that kind of framework is expiring. So big confirmation bias from AI, kind of helping the founder getting convinced of that what he's building is good, but that's not necessarily true. So big problem there.
I don't know. You're probably right. There's an issue there for sure. We're back to the basics again. I mean, problem, solution. You look at the founder in the eye, you try to understand the problem, the vision, stuff like that. I mean, since the research is good, now the heart of the problem is the core differentiation component, probably.
No, I agree. And then the next question is like, what is the meaning of a prototype, really? If you can build a prototype in a weekend, maybe, as you say, we need to go really back to the basic and digging into, what's the customer usage? What do they say? How do they behaviorally like interact with it? So it's shifting a little bit. So to quality of prototype, to real interaction, right?
Yeah, it is. I mean, Anthropic itself is mentioned in the report that the validation cycle used to take months at least. Now it takes weeks, maybe days in some instances. So this is crazy. And on a related note, it was not in the newsletter, but this morning I read an article mentioning that Bain Capital is basically reviewing its technology due diligence rules for M&A, and basically they are starting to vibe code an alternative software solution to see how easy it is to copy the software stack of a target. So that's like, I mean, this is, changing completely the approach to technology due diligence. Can I remake it in a weekend? If yes, that's crazy in some ways.
So even the kind of what is a founder what a founder will look like in the future, then it's not necessarily the best coder anymore, but maybe it's the kind of the AI architect that has a sense of market and can sell. So it's kind of shifting as well in that sense. So whenever you do diligence on a startup, the founder sort of proxies, are kind of changing and shifting again.
Yeah, I agree.
Also talking about moats, see if building product is not the moat anymore, what is again switching is workflow and data. So the more you can have customer have like your tools ingrained in their own workflow, and the more you can collect data that feeds the product, that's really the next level of moat that AI native companies are building, and that's probably what's going to happen like in the future.
Yeah. Also, this conversation is all the rage currently in the VC circles. Was the moat? And the easy answer is the moat is execution, and you're turning back to what you were mentioning before: speed, founder profile, the ability to rally AI into a crazy race to get into the market, and that's one angle. And I get it, and probably there are just a few of the former era type of moats that might still resist. Like one of the traditional digital moats or technology moats are network externalities. Maybe they will hold, even though it's not easy to find network externality, real network effects in many products, right?
Very interesting. And before we talk about Italian news, this report is too important, so that's why we want to highlight here. I think every founder should read it. So maybe one question that is going to drag in the future is a seed disappearing? So since founder now can build and they can validate, so a seed round used for building and validating, it doesn't make really sense anymore. So kind of seed is shifting to hiring more people and really building a product that scales. So there is some shift there.
Yeah, I don't have a full pulse, even though the feeling is that there is a shift. There is a lot of in the last couple of years, there are so many rounds that are labeled as pre-seed that every day in the previous period would be seed rounds. And the seed rounds that you are seeing, at least in the top quartile, are really Series A, masked Series A's or very late seed. So I'm not sure the rounds are disappearing, but the meaning of the rounds is shifting. That's for sure, at least in the software heavy space.
For founders that haven't, please dig into this report. This playbook is very interesting, and it's probably will have like gems that is going to reflect in the future of how companies are built. So going back to Italian news, a few highlights from last week. X-nano synthetic graphite startup raising 3.7 million in a seed round from Mitotech Ventures, Pietro Fiorentini, and other business angel. So deep tech in Italy really is like blooming very fast and in different direction. And even with strategic investor, like in this round, Pietro Fiorentini being a strategic, that's kind of a little bit of a confirmation that Italy is very bullish on deep tech.
Yeah, I agree. But we have a history of deep tech, and we have strong research institutions. What probably we can do more and accelerate more in deep tech related startups. So good to see that there are these type of companies being started and being started out of the research institutions. So the loop is closing somehow, right? Research, startup, company. And this is good news in my view. This specific X-nano startup comes from the IIT, the Italian Institute for Research. So that's very good. And it is, it operates in an interesting space, right?
Yeah, I mean, X-nano is basically providing like a synthetic graphite for ion batteries, which is essentially, used in many applications. And we can think of, automotive as the first one, but that's really like a big part of the future supply chain for like several big industries, I would say. So definitely well positioned here.
Yeah, you try to have the feeling of reshoring some value chains and production chains back to the Western world or Europe. Yeah?
Nice.
Even though China is the leader here, so they have everything to lead the production of batteries now. Yeah.
So talking also about like deep tech abroad, but through Italian founders, let's talk about Rainbow Crops, Belgian-based agri-tech startup raising 9.7 million in a seed round from Lifty, AIF, PINC, and Corteva, together with Maya Ventures as well. So basically, they're using AI to do crop engineering to essentially have more resilient and productive crop varieties. So they use genome editing and precision breeding in particular, and the AI is definitely helping on this. So fairly big raise, okay, not in Italy, but with Italian founders and through Italian investor. So again, like there is this consolidation of the fact that deep tech is not just being financed in Italy, but also Italian investors are willing to expand their horizon abroad. That's a pretty interesting trend.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. It was amusing to me in this case. Do you remember Monsanto? Yeah. So when I read the title, it was like genome editing. This reminds me of something. And I went back to the news from some years ago, the movement against genetically modified organisms, Monsanto, corn. Then I'm not an expert, so I went out and looked for the difference between genetic engineering and genome engineering, and that's an interesting rabbit hole. I don't know whether you went into it. Yeah, it was interesting. So the basic idea is that genetic engineering is a very broad concept, and mostly in the Monsanto era was about adding pieces of it, foreign DNA into an existing species genome. Whereas genome engineering, as you mentioned, is extremely more precise. It is about tweaking specific genes, to get different effects. And this is interesting. I find it very interesting. Will we have backlashes now or not?
Yeah, I mean, it's a hot topic for sure. Like all GMOs, some people argue that pretty much everything we eat is full of GMOs in some form or another, like heavier or lighter. But that's pretty much taking the old breeding kind of techniques to make like resilient crops to a different level at a different scales. But yeah, I agree with you. What is going to be the implication for the future? So that's interesting to think about.
I'm long. I mean, I'm not against it. I was just amused about history repeating in a different way and wondering about the outcomes. But I agree with you. I mean, it's been with us for quite some time now, the GMO movement.
Yeah. So, Nick, thank you so much for joining. Congrats on the 300th issue of the Week in Italian Startup newsletter. So, the people that didn't join yet, please join Nicolo's Substack on this and hitting 300. So, awesome. Good job on this.
Thank you so much, Jack. It's also thanks to you and the work you do every week on the podcast. So, good job. Thank you. And, let's keep going.
Let's keep going, man. Of course, yeah. See you later. Enjoy. Thank you.
Ciao, everybody. See you in a week.